Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Diego Area, and I am the Deputy Director for Strategic Development at the Adrian Ash Latin America Center. Today, we will be wrapping up the 2-year Better Together JuntosEsMejor challenge in collaboration with USAID and the IDB. 2 years ago, the world was significantly different to how it is today. Starting with the fact that earlier today, Russian forces invaded Ukraine in a mass assault by land, sea, and air, which is the biggest attack by one state against another in Europe since World War II. With the pandemic barely in our radars, in February 2020 was in many ways a simpler time. However, even then, the Venezuelan migration crisis had already extended for multiple years with no clear resolution in sight. 2 years ago, there were evident gaps in support for migrants within and outside Venezuela. So the Better Together Challenge, the JuntosEsMejor Challenge, was launched in response to these gaps. Not only was the challenge designed to respond to our need for innovation in the migration crisis, it was also built to elevate the profiles of local groups. The challenge organizers believed that humanitarian innovation was best done in conversation with knowledgeable civil society actors on the ground, in addition to, of course, engaging with international stakeholders. This approach has yielded significant and innovative results through the last 2 years. In the first half of today's program, we'll hear from USAID and IDB about their reflections on the migration crisis and the importance of innovation. In the second half of the conversation, we'll hear directly from several challenge grantees on their work they did during these years. Our speakers offer unique insights into what innovations are possible within existing frameworks and are feasible given on-the-ground constraints and challenges. We look forward to a dynamic discussion that frames the current state of affairs and proposes innovative solutions to address this multidimensional situation. Before we begin the first panel, we'd like to show a brief Innovator video. This video by Sesame Workshop showcases the work being done to support children's education through online access and WhatsApp resources.
Sesame Workshop es una organización sin ánimo de lucro que...
Sesame Workshop is a nonprofit organization that from the beginning has been very concerned about children who are facing major adversity. We saw the ability to provide support materials to protect young children. So we decided to try 2 technological solutions that were contemplated to surmount different barriers. First, we had this Sesame Street-based program, and this way children could access curated content from the best material from Sesame Street, and then we knew that WhatsApp was key. So we created a WhatsApp bot that allowed us to navigate with just a few steps to any resources they were seeking. So they were trying to reinforce some educational abilities, then we included that. We piloted this in Peru in 3 different cities. We were able to see how these solutions helped us to surmount some of those barriers and to meet our objective. That was to make these quality educational opportunities available to the children. My name is Osvaldo Dominguez. I am Mariel Dominguez's father, and I think that she has learned a lot, colors, numbers. She works, she likes to play a lot with Cookie Monster, and all of this has been possible through this app. It was great to see how technology can be used to help children learn.
Welcome back, everyone. Now I am delighted to introduce our first panel, Michael Eddy, Gustavo Tarre, and Jamila Biggio. Michael is the Acting Deputy Assistant Administrator and South American Affairs Director of the Latin American and Caribbean Bureau at USAID. Gustavo Tarre is the Executive Director for Venezuela at the Inter-American Development Bank, and Jamila is the Senior Coordinator for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment at USAID. Michael, Gustavo, and Jamila's perspective will help frame the broader humanitarian context of Venezuela, the former gaps on the ground that the challenge sought to address, and the gender component of migration in Venezuela. So I would like to start with you, Michael. How does USAID see the ongoing Venezuelan crisis, and what are the different approaches the organization is taking to address some of the most important issues, both in the country and in the region, such as the spread of past eradicated diseases, access to food, potable water, and medicine, among others?
Diego, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Thanks to the Atlantic Council for hosting this event. I want to thank you also for highlighting the day's events, right, and express solidarity with the people of Ukraine going through unspeakable hardship today. Our thoughts and our prayers are with them. Pivoting to a happier note, we're here to discuss and celebrate the JuntosEsMejor challenge. I'm reflecting back to our partnership, Diego, and with the Atlantic Council. We launched the JuntosEsMejor challenge in January of 2020, and it's really remarkable to think about what the world has gone through, what we all have gone through in the last 2 years, but also what this amazing challenge has gone through, and the resiliency of everyone involved. And I want to thank very sincerely the IDB Venezuela Executive Director, Gustavo Tarre, who's here with us today, IDB Lab Chief Executive Officer, Irene Arias Hoffman, whom you will hear from a little bit later on. The IDB Lab has been a co-leader and co-innovator of this challenge, and we're very grateful to the partnership that we've had with them. I think it's an important model for the way donors can and should work together. I'm also pleased to be here with my colleague, Jamil Biggio, USAID's Senior Coordinator for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment. As folks know, the JuntosEsMejor challenge was necessary because 6.1 million Venezuelan citizens, colleagues, peers of ours, migrants, refugees have had to flee their country in recent years, flee the socioeconomic implosion of their country. This is the largest displacement, largest migratory event in the Western Hemisphere's history, and the second largest displacement globally after Syria. This massive population influx has put a great strain on the capacity of some host communities to deal with the influx, and particularly border communities of Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. I served as 4 years as our mission director in Brazil, and was our embassy's point of contact for the Operation Welcome of the government of Brazil, Operação Acolhida. It was one of the most compelling experiences of a long career, but really also one of the most gut-wrenching to meet dozens and dozens and dozens of families who have had to flee everything they know, flee their homes. These are professionals, doctors, engineers, lawyers, nurses, people who had to leave often with the items they could carry, or the items on their back, on harrowing journeys, hundreds of miles, some cases thousands of miles. Their lives uprooted, and it takes a lot. It takes a village. It takes all of us to try to deal with a challenge of this scale. I am proud that the United States has been the single largest donor of assistance to the Venezuela regional crisis, providing to date $1.9 billion of humanitarian development, economic and health assistance to save lives and improve lives that have been affected by this unprecedented crisis. But responding to a crisis of this scale, of this dynamic challenge, requires an all hands on deck perspective, and it requires us to leverage new tools and resources. It requires us to leverage partners and new partners, and that's really what the JuntosEsMejor challenge has been all about. And we're here to talk about this very innovative response among this support. So launched in October 2019, JuntosEsMejor sought to support a global initiative to crowdsource and fund and scale innovative solutions from anywhere in the world to support Venezuelans and host communities dealing with the Venezuelan migrants and all those affected by this regional crisis. This challenge embodies everything that USAID is about, and our belief that by tapping the creativity and expertise of innovative solvers and entrepreneurial organizations, we can come up with new and better ways to respond to the challenges that communities are facing. Through JuntosEsMejor, we have facilitated employment opportunities and access to information, including innovative access to internet opportunities. We've supported gender-based violence issues, educational resources for youth to gain the skills they need to succeed in their new economic reality. Collectively, between USAID and IDB, we've invested in 33 organizations and made 35 grants to partners in 10 countries throughout Latin America, including, importantly, inside Venezuela. And the vast majority of these organizations that we partner with, 85% are local organizations based in the region. As we know, this supporting local partners or localization is an ongoing focus and priority of USAID, and very much is a focus of our administrator, Samantha Power, and I laud her for this prioritization, because we truly believe that this is a pathway towards longer term impact by doing everything we can to work with local partners. Even more importantly, 50% of our grantees were what we call earlier stage organizations or groups that had never worked with USAID before. So we're finding new partners to the USAID family to bring to this amazing challenge. Our local partners applied for grants because they believed that their ability to help address problems that they were directly experiencing and they saw others experiencing in their communities. So for one example, we have a partner in Venezuela that piloted a first of its kind solution that allows Venezuelans in urban areas to receive frequent, uncensored and unbiased news and information via low cost solutions, including SMS text. And for folks who are working in this environment, they know that access to information is very difficult. They know that it's a very closed space, which makes access to information very difficult. So it takes innovative solutions like this to provide news and information that the people on the ground need. For the founders of this project, working with the challenge has been an exciting, enriching experience. And we know that firsthand from them, because as we're doing our evaluation interviews, this group said that directly that JuntosEsMejor exceeded our expectations in many aspects. And that by being selected as a new USAID partner has helped launch our big dream. While the whole world seemed paralyzed by the pandemic, we were able to roll out our innovative solution and make our project reality. And this specific example delivers timely access to information to 55,000 users, regardless of whether there's an energy blackout or a government blackout or government monitoring of other kind. And this is not an isolated example. Over 500,000 lives have been directly impacted by the 25 USAID grantees that we've been able to directly evaluate. So due to the hard work of these partners, due to their resilience and adaptability over these years, over the last 18 months, our grantees have been able, for example, to provide nearly 8,000 migrants with the tools they need to help them access trusted housing, healthcare, and legal advice. We've ensured that 8,000 people have benefited from employment opportunities and training, including 1,700 inside Venezuela. 2.5 million have received direct information via social media campaigns, including important campaigns to reduce xenophobia, which is a critical issue regionally. And we've supported innovative solutions that have helped remittances and valuable life-saving resources get to families and mitigate the economic impact that they're facing. Some 9 out of the 10 of our grantees have concrete plans to continue scaling their solutions after the challenge ends, and they've secured an additional 6.5 million from investors to continue the resources after the challenge. So just to conclude, I want to say I know that these last 2 years have been difficult for everyone, for all of us. And no more so than to implement this JuntosEsMejor challenge. But I want to thank the IDB Lab, people you're going to hear from today, from our team, from the IDB team, that have made this happen and shown tremendous resiliency throughout a tough couple of years. While USAID work on JuntosEsMejor is coming to a close, because our partners are continuing their work, we know that we're able to continue to support the people of Latin America and the Caribbean and of Venezuela to deal with this crisis. We stand with the small local organizations that are doing everything that they can to help Venezuelans deal with this crisis, and we'll continue working with them. So we thank you for the opportunity to be with you here today. Look forward to the specific examples. The video that we just saw was absolutely illustrative of how important and everything that this challenge is about. So thanks for the invitation. Back to you, Diego.
Muchas gracias, Michael. Ahora voy a pasar a mi lengua natal.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in my native language, to speak with my professor, Gustavo Tarre. Professor, thank you. It's an honor to speak with you. I wanted to ask you, one of the objectives is JuntosEsMejor has been to promote a network of connections between international organizations and local organizations from civil society to go forward with projects and programs to support Venezuelans, not only in the region, but also, as Michael said in his comments, in the country. I wanted to have you tell me what has been the impact of these connections for organizations in order to strengthen their capacities and an increase in the impact of their initiatives. Go ahead. Thank you very much, Diego. First of all, I'd like to thank Atlantic Council, USAID, and IDB Lab for this invitation. It's an honor to be here to speak with Michael and Jamil on these issues and hear from them about lessons learned based on a program that is closing, but has been so very successful. And I say this because we all know the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela is very complex. We know the impact that the Venezuelan crisis has had on neighboring countries and countries that are not neighboring countries. And so this crisis has an impact on the countries that host Venezuelans who are looking for new opportunities, who leave their life behind, looking for a better life. But frequently, an emphasis is placed on the outrageous cost of this for the host countries. And it always seems to me that it's very important to create more resources by integrating the private sector and civil society to support the public sector. Now, I think this is an important aspect, and I think it is increasingly recognized the benefits that the wave of Venezuelan migrants has brought and can bring to the host countries. So in this sense, the initiative JuntosEsMejor allowed us to see them or bring in so many civil society and private sector organizations who are working to support Venezuelans, both in the country and outside of the countries, initiatives of economic empowerment for the most vulnerable, and programs to create financial inclusion models and innovative projects. And so this is leading to great impacts to help everyone socially and economically, to promote integration of Venezuelan migrants as new clients, as employers, brings many benefits to the host countries. Frequently, they have or get new knowledge and skills that businesses need, and it makes everyone more competitive. It also helps innovation. It creates services and employment for local communities, and also increases consumption and contributions to Social Security. And all of this means that this is a very complex model, but it is very useful. Personally, I am convinced that the different chambers and trade organizations, civil society organizations, influence in the region to lay out clear rules and show solidarity and to influence regulations and public policies with regard to Venezuelan migrants. This is key to have sustained efforts and to bring together multilateral organizations and local organizations. But we need more resources, more sectors, because this is very challenging and will be increasingly challenging. And this is going to go on until democracy is reestablished in Venezuela. We don't know when this will stop, this migratory phenomenon. But I understand that as it persists, while we still have the dictatorship of Nicolás Maduro, we are going to continue to have alarming waves of migrants. So that's my answer to your question.
I'd like to bring to the conversation Jamil. Jamil, welcome to this virtual conversation. And I want to ask you, what is the unique role that women have in addressing Venezuela's migration crisis? Can Venezuelan women engaging in innovative practices learn from the cases of other countries in conflict?
Thank you so much, Diego. It is such a pleasure to be with you. To thank you to the Atlantic Council for hosting us, and such a pleasure to be in conversation with our partner, Gustavo, my USAID colleague, Michael. Before I answer your question, Diego, one of the pieces that we've learned from other contexts is the importance of, one, understanding what the specific experiences are of women and girls, what challenges do they face, and what are the barriers to them contributing to solutions in their communities and countries. And that is certainly the case in Venezuela, the value of taking that lens and of understanding both those challenges and the opportunities. So looking at that, we recognize that of the millions of Venezuelans who have left their country due to the violence and insecurity, it's estimated that at least 40% of them identify as women. So women are very much represented among those who were forced to migrate. We recognize, as we look at the experience of Venezuelan migrants and refugees throughout Latin America, that inadequate living conditions, discrimination, labor exploitation, and xenophobia are all new realities that these migrants are facing. But within that, we also recognize that women and girls face specific challenges. So where forced migration around the world occurs, including in Venezuela, we see that women, girls, LGBTQI+ individuals are particularly vulnerable to gender-based violence, including trafficking and sexual exploitation. And the effects of this violence has long-lasting and far-reaching consequences. We also know that female migrants and refugees, given their undocumented status, have less access to protection services and have less access to adequate healthcare. So they're both at greater risk of experiencing violence and have fewer opportunities of accessing the services and support they need to recover from that violence, which again just increases the long-term impact and the longer-term harm that this violence poses for women, girls, and LGBTQI+ communities at a special risk. We also know, as we look at the crisis in Venezuela and lessons from other crises around the world, that when it comes to providing for their families, contributing to their communities, that women face significant economic disadvantage. So in all of the host countries in the region, there's a significant gap between men and women's participation in the labor force. Women face fewer opportunities, have fewer opportunities to participate economically, which means that they have fewer opportunities to pursue the economic prosperity and freedom that they came to seek when they migrated in the first place. All of this informs the work that of the challenge and draws on lessons from other crises and conflicts that to help all Venezuelans, we need targeted efforts for women and girls that recognize and respond to the specific challenges they face. So we're thrilled that the JuntosEsMejor challenge has done just that. We know it has recognized that when you invest in only half the population, it's going to limit how effective solutions can be, and will keep communities and countries from thriving to the extent that they best can. And so the investments and the work of the challenge have recognized that we need the talent and potential of all people to tackle the challenges that Venezuelan migrants and host communities are experiencing. And to get there, we have to address the gender discrimination and systemic barriers that have held back women and girls. So that's why USAID, with the $2 million invested by the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Hub, leveraged the JuntosEsMejor challenge to test and advance solutions aimed at supporting women's economic empowerment and addressing gender-based violence issues. And we saw real challenges in the region where women and girls, even recognizing the significant gender discrimination and systemic barriers that women and girls face in the region, the projects that were funded through the challenge have seen real results. So in just under a year, over 3,000 women have gained access to employment opportunities. 200 Venezuelan women have received more comprehensive access to services to respond to the gender-based violence they've experienced. And nearly 200 displaced men were supported to change their behaviors and actions towards women. So let me start with that example, because the challenge is about supporting innovation. So what has been innovative in the work and support of these efforts? So in the first example, in Panama, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society put men at the center of the solution to preventing gender-based violence. They engaged men directly to examine the harmful social norms and power structures that contribute to the violence that men are perpetrating against women and girls. So men were asked to question social constructs around traditional masculinity, to understand their relationship to violence, and to explore ways to transform their intimate and familial relationships into more equal partnerships. By the end of the program, over 85% of the participants demonstrated enhanced understanding of nonviolent coping mechanisms. And that is critical as we look at actually preventing gender-based violence and creating home lives that are safe for everybody. There's also work to address the needs of survivors, including the first 24-hour bilingual gender-based violence hotline in Trinidad and Tobago. Another area of innovation for the challenge is focusing on generating space and opportunity for women to earn a good living and to support their families. So in Brazil, this was informed and driven out by a project, a locally driven effort to support more than 38,000 Venezuelan migrants with targeted attention to women across 3 major cities in Brazil, looking at a menu of crucial services from legal aid to skill certification to job placement, entrepreneurship training. And here, for example, the Scalabrini International Migration Network financed a total of 520 microenterprises. Nearly 80% of them were led by Venezuelan women. And the support helped them launch and grow their businesses to be successful. So these are just some of the examples of the solutions and the innovations that the challenge has supported. And I know we're all thrilled to see these results. And even as our funding comes to a close, hope that the projects themselves won't end, recognizing how critical they are to respond to the dire situation that Venezuelan women and girls and their communities continue to experience. And it's important, again, as part of the broader response to the migration crisis, of recognizing that we need targeted solutions for migrant women and girls, with solutions that are appropriate to the context, that are driven by local leaders, by women leaders. So we have in the challenge partnered directly with women-led organizations. That's again one of the lessons as we look at conflicts and crises around the world, that women leaders themselves are driving these solutions and are best placed to do that. And so it's through opportunities like the challenge where we can partner and support them and their vision. So really thrilled to have the opportunity to join you all and look forward to continuing to talk more about this work.
Thank you, Jamila. And thank you to Michael, to you, and to Gustavo Tarre for such an interesting and engaging conversation. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. So I want to thank you all for your time. And we will now show to the audience a beneficiary impact video. This video by Inclúyeme discusses the work being done to support migrants with disabilities in Argentina and Chile.
Incluyeme.com es una empresa B, una empresa
Incluyeme.com is a nonprofit organization, and it exists in 11 Latin American countries. We try to include people with disabilities because 85% of those with disabilities do not have jobs, and they face greater barriers to employment, to health, and to education. We have a website with jobs where 220,000 individuals have sought jobs, and we work with businesses to make them more inclusive. We provide advice to them of how to be more inclusive. The JuntosEsMejor challenge helped us to put forth our initiative, and we were trying to find intersectionality between migration and disabilities. We worked with 1,000 people with disabilities, among them 92 Venezuelans in Argentina and Chile. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. I have been in Argentina for about 2 years and 3 months. I came seeking a better life for myself and my family. The pandemic has, of course, thrown a wrench into that, but I do have a friend who is Venezuelan who is saying, go into incluyeme.com. I signed up for a virtual course. I would recommend this to anyone with disabilities. I have visual impairments, but this serves for anyone with disabilities. It's time for us to be able to join the labor force and to prove the abilities that we have.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you to Inclúyeme for such an amazing presentation video and for your great work. Now I am delighted to introduce Irene Arias Hoffman, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Inter-American Development Bank Lab, the IDB Lab. Prior to her role at the IDB, Irene worked for more than 20 years with the World Bank Group, specifically with the International Finance Corporation, the largest international development institution focused on the private sector. Irene, welcome to this event. The floor is yours.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Diego, and thank you everyone who's here with us today, and to the Atlantic Council for hosting us, and of course to USAID, and thank you, Michael, Jamil, for your words earlier, for a great partnership that we have built over these 2 years with a common purpose, and it's allowed us, I think, to design and to implement a program that would hopefully have this lasting effect, and it's already impacted a lot of people. I think the BetterTogether challenge has made us better as a team and better as two organizations working together. So thank you, and thank you to the 25 organizations that have partnered with us worldwide to make this happen. Thank you also to Director Tarre and for being here and for the support of the Venezuelan chair. And Sarah, thank you also from Global Affairs Canada for joining this effort. And I think a lot has been said already, but I think what we see here is that we have that common purpose of ensuring that the integration of migrants in their host communities happens, and we can achieve together two of the midterm goals of Vision 2025 of the IDB Group, which include reactivate the productive sector and promote social progress. And I think we all here believe that migrants bring skills, talent, innovation to their host countries, and become a very important pillar to promote economic growth in the countries where they go, as well as in their home countries. So, for us at IDB Lab, as the innovation arm of the Inter-American Development Bank, one of the main lessons from the BetterTogether challenge has been what we have discovered and understood in terms of the impact and the huge and powerful innovative ecosystem of entrepreneurs, of startups, of nonprofits that can have a very strong impact working together in support of vulnerable population in the region, particularly the migrants in those groups that are vulnerable, including women, youth, indigenous communities. We've heard from Inclúyeme, the persons with disabilities, and what concrete impact we can have in bringing opportunities to them through this program, and the LGBTQ+ community as well. And the resources and the technical support of the public and private sector together can have a very strong impact, but also help us make sure that what we have done here can continue and can scale. The issue of scalability is very important, and I can't wait to hear from more of the 32 innovators that we have been working together with. They are the ones who've directly been improving the lives of thousands of migrants and their host communities. From IDB Lab, we directly supported 10 of the projects in 9 countries, and benefiting 55,000 Venezuelan migrants and local communities already. 55,000. This is why understanding the results, the impact of these projects, and we decided to launch between IDB Lab and IDB's migration unit a new framework called MIG Innovation that can give continuity to this and promoting a more active and innovative role of the private sector together with civil society to scale up this innovative ecosystem and support the sustained efforts of the public sector. So entrepreneurs, all the companies, all the nonprofits that have worked together with us on this, you are key players in addressing this regional migration challenge, in creating the jobs, the business opportunities that we want to create. And so you can continue to count on our support. I'd like to thank again also USAID, of course, and Global Affairs Canada for their participation today and for joining with a commitment to help us provide this continuity and continue to scale. With this, can't wait to hear from the innovators that have joined us today. They have very inspiring stories and contributions that we can learn from, like what we just heard from Inclúyeme. And to moderate this conversation, this next conversation, I'm going to pass the mic to Shanna O'Reilly, who's the senior manager of the JuntosEsMejor project from Resonance Global. Thank you so much, Shanna, and the Resonance team for your commitment throughout these couple of years, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Irene. It's been wonderful to partner with the IDB as well as obviously with USAID. Working with both agencies over the last 2.5 years on this project has just been an amazing learning experience, and I think really the benefits have shown in the field. I also want to take a second to thank our partners, our innovators who are here with us today on the panel, as well as those who are listening in. I think we're all very excited because you all are what we're here to learn more about and listen to. And I can speak for myself, having had the opportunity to engage with all of you up close during monthly meetings, strategy sessions, product development, and other activities. I've really just been extremely inspired by your hard work, your time, your stories, and the successes that have come out of this. So jumping right in, if I may, I'd like to ask each of you to just take 2 minutes to share with us a little bit about the lessons you've learned working on innovation with migrants and host communities. We have 4 organizations that are here with us today. First, let me introduce my colleague, Camilo Venezuela, who's here from the International Rescue Committee. IRC is ensuring access to education for Venezuelan and Colombian children and families through what's called the Safe Schools program. In just under a year, it's amazing. They've reached more than 8,000 families in 24 schools along the Colombian and Venezuelan border in the city of Cúcuta. They're advancing learning in writing and math through school-based violence prevention. So, bienvenido, Camilo, adelante.
Welcome, Camilo, and please go ahead. Thank you very much, Anna. My greetings to the audience. This project decided to provide services in Colombia. After 2 months of implementation, we have made great strides. We have a school in Cúcuta, in the main city on the border between Colombia and Venezuela. Between March 2020 and June of 2021, it was closed, and hundreds of children, mainly Venezuelan migrant children, were left out of school. During the pandemic, there were many issues in adapting the practices to be able to provide an education to children. We have Ana, who is Venezuelan, who has been in Colombia for a few years. Their parents, because of the pandemic, had a hard time earning money. So Ana was not able to attend school. In this context, we learned many things. During the project, we helped children to learn to read and write. And we took a special approach. The education and support was specially targeted to children in crisis. There were many, we used WhatsApp to reach children. Anna's mother, for example, was given a cell phone so that she could access WhatsApp, and Anna received printed materials so that she could do her classwork at home.
Many had to face great challenges during the pandemic. During the project, the children also received psychological help to manage stress and to feel that they were supported during this difficult time. For Jenny, this project was very important for her children. She also received training through our family program. This helped also her children to mitigate their negative behaviors and control their emotions. She learned through online training that we offered. Jenny was able to support her children, and so she could, so the children could learn to read, so they could also do their homework. When schools reopened, we also were providing support. We offered protocols for the reopening of schools. We helped the school Julio Pérez Ferrer so that they could respond to emergencies and so that they could address the needs of Venezuelan migrants and strengthen the relationship between the school and families.
Watch develop. It seems like between pandemic, between schools closing, between any number of things that I think are global issues at this point, it simply just kept trucking on and moving forward. And it's been amazing to watch how they've adapted and improved on their approaches, pulled a lot of efforts online, and from what I understand, really developed trust with communities as a foundational point for engagement. Next, I want to welcome my colleague, Gabriel Marcolongo, who is founder and CEO of a really fascinating and important organization called Incluyeme.com. They are with with support from JuntosEsMejor and broadly working on developing a platform to facilitate online access to an employability tool for more than 20,000 people with disabilities from the Venezuelan diaspora in Argentina and Chile to access these services. Through the platform, they're gaining support through training and guidance and access to a network of more than 4,000 potential employers. And it's a really interesting project, so we look forward to hearing more about it. Adelante, Gabriel.
Thank you so much, Shana. Muchísimas gracias. As Camilo mentioned before, I think that the best way I can describe the project is by telling you a story. And that's the story of Karen. She's a Venezuelan migrant who arrived in Argentina about 2 years ago. And she studied chemical engineering in Venezuela. She has a motor disability, and she's in charge of a small son. And when trying to get a job, she faced several barriers. In her words, she mentioned that, I don't know if I'm not getting a job because I'm a migrant, or because I'm a woman, or because of my disability. So Karen is one of many Venezuelan migrants with disabilities struggling to get a job. For this project, we started working with intersectional approaches to vulnerability reduction. So in this case, migrants with disabilities. It means that to address the unemployment problems that people with disabilities have in the region, where 3 out of 4 persons with disabilities are employed, we also need to consider the difficulties of being a migrant and access to formal employment. So our approach was focused on the possibilities that the pandemic brought. Tech companies were booming and requiring IT professionals, and online training adoption was increasing. So these job opportunities are typically well paid and free location. So we can make use of freelancing platforms as a way to increase income creation opportunities for our beneficiaries. We live in a world where a person with tech skills and an internet connection can apply to projects worldwide. So during the first year of the project, we trained in tech a total of 825 people with disabilities, both local migrants, living in Chile and Argentina. We reached 92 migrants with disabilities, where 66 were in Argentina and 26 in Chile. And we exceed by near 50% the expected result of local people with disabilities participating in trainings from a goal of 500 people. As a final note, I hope you remember we talked about Karen a few minutes ago, and she participated in our courses, and she's now working in a top consulting firm as a project manager. So the job changed Karen's life and her family. So she was only waiting for an opportunity to thrive, and we expect to keep changing realities by connecting very talented people with inclusive companies. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabriel. I think this is a really inspiring initiative for us, and one of the things that's really interesting too is you all are a new partner for us on the USAID and side, and working with organizations like you. I think we have a lot to learn from what you're doing, and so appreciate your time and commitment and initiative on the effort. Now I want to take a second to introduce Anya Ayang-Chi, who is a fashion entrepreneur and founder of Together We Foundation. Together We Foundation works to promote opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago through a project called Spool, which is an interesting effort, a 360-degree online training program for women in garment production that support the fashion and carnaval industries in the Caribbean. So I'll pass the word over to you, Anya.
Thank you so much, Shana. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I am actually at the very beginning of execution of the program with support from IDB Lab. So we are in the early stage of putting this initiative into fruition. The innovation of this entity is recognizing, as you mentioned, Shana, the sort of sizable contribution that the fashion and particularly the carnival industries have on the economy in Trinidad and Tobago and the region as a whole. Yet there's quite a shortage of skilled labor to fulfill on the needs of the industries. And I've noticed as a fashion designer myself that there's this gap to be filled there. And as well as having worked with several Venezuelan, in particular, women who have tremendous skill in this area, and realizing that there's an opportunity here to upskill the migrant population alongside the host population and exchange these skill sets between them, because it will, of course, serve to provide livelihood to the women who are arriving here in Trinidad and Tobago and in need of economic empowerment, as well as fulfill on the needs of the industry itself to bring as much of the manufacturing back to Trinidad and Tobago and solidify the industries that are resident here. In the process of piloting the project, we, of course, were doing it during the pandemic and realized that we would not be able to do as much of the training in person. So we are doing a hybrid of online training and in-person training to allow for a sort of more penetrated reach to the parts of the country that mostly are occupied by the migrant population. Of course, we then have had to partner with telecommunications partners to ensure accessibility to the programming. And we hope that this will solve for the fact that there's not as much in-person operation happening through this period, but also, to Irene's point, to be able to scale the project beyond Trinidad and Tobago, hopefully to the rest of the region. That's our ideal scenario. So as a fashion myself, I've been able to create more of an opportunity with this population of skilled labor. And I really look forward to be able to scale this further and bridge the gap between these two needs. Thank you so much for having me.
So nice to have you here, and excited to hear how the project continues to develop as you're launching. Finally, I'd like to take a moment to pass the word over to my colleague, Roberto Mera, who is the country director for Hebrew Immigration Aid Society. They have a really interesting and innovative program. They work on a recently piloted effort called Balancing the Scales, Men Against Gender-Based Violence. This cutting-edge program is working to promote positive masculinities with more than 300 Venezuelan men in Panama. What they're trying to do is analyze the power relations surrounding gender and social norms that often result in gender-based violence. Welcome, Roberto. Adelante.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Hannah. Well, first of all, I would like to say that talking about masculinities falls as an innovation in the context of Panama for many reasons. First of all, HIAS implemented a new curricula and a methodology that allow men to reflect on the consequences of power balance in the society, from how they were raised in the family and in the society itself. Second, we were able to create a masculinity app for the first time in Panama. It's called El Hombre de Hoy, which allows everyone through an Android or iOS system to have access and to even understand what is a positive masculinity. And third of all, this methodology also allows intergender discussions at the end of the curriculum, meaning having reflective discussions with men and women in the same room. And overall, this project has a very innovation approach, as it also included positive masculinities inside the government plan and discussions in the context of Panama. In terms of impacts, more than 300 Venezuelan men were able to have discussions about, am I the same man who left Venezuela? Am I the same man that I can be considered a provider? Can I protect my family now that I'm in a new country? All these quotes, all these feelings were discussed amongst men, and also we were able to hear women and daughters and partners from this man saying, my dad is behaving differently now. My dad is getting to understand me better. My dad is taking things more easy now after these sessions. All men also agree that this is an ongoing process, a transformation process, and they also compromise to keep this going along the coming months and years. What's next? I think that the app really allows us, HIAS, to feed this app, and also to keep all men, Venezuelan men, up to date on what is a man today and how they should, what is a positive masculinity. Also, we are trying to work with the government to keep this curricula active, not only for Venezuelan men, but also, who knows, for the local community. And this will also allow us to keep the project going and to keep positive masculinity in the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really love this program. Personally, I think I can connect with it, and we all can benefit from what you're trying to do and the interchange between men and women on the initiative. I might try to take a few minutes here. I think we have until about 11:05 to ask a few follow-up questions, if I may, starting with IRC. Camilo, I wonder if you would mind sharing an insight or going a little bit deeper in how your programming specifically is improving learning outcomes for students within schools through school-based violence prevention.
Hey, one of the key success factors was to having conversation spaces with teachers, with caregivers and principals for understanding the best way to adapt the activities of the program into the pandemic. So that's why we understand that WhatsApp was the best way to reach the students, and also we need to support the developing of skills of teachers, and we adapt all these activities that were not in our initial plans. So that was something that very supported us. We really open to give spaces to the stakeholders for giving in the decision-making process, and that was a key factor for us. You know, like be open and understanding the needs of the schools during the pandemic and during the meanwhile the migratory crisis. So that was very important for us.
Yeah, that ability to identify needs and pivot has been, I think, crucial there. You all have worked with families to ensure they had connectivity in order to move activities online, and that is no small feat. And it's really impressive the impact that that has had. For Inclúyeme, would be interested to hear a little bit broadly about how your approaches when working with some of the populations you engage with really address some of the questions you raised about perhaps double and even triple barriers to inclusivity, and how you ensure that some of these populations are able to gain support and that the stigma is overcome through your activities.
Sure, and we have tried to understand the differences in their context regarding people with disabilities. This was not easy because there is lack of data about migrants with disabilities. This population also does not have the same level information sources and channels as locals with disabilities. So in that sense, we try to reach them through organizations as well as specialized in migration, like IOM or Servicios de Migrantes. However, even with the support of those partners, it has been a challenge, and we learned that direct communication through WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, and grassroots Venezuelan organizations can be an excellent way to reach them. Regarding stigmas, we're focusing first on what people can do and what they are good at, and not in their differences. So additionally, we put our focus on what joins local communities and migrant people. For instance, in that case, the difficulties of finding a job because of the fact of having a disability.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. I think people would be surprised to know how pervasive these needs are and how essential it is to really provide that kind of support, and that there's often opportunity that lies within the situation if we can explore it from the right angle. Transitioning a little bit back again to our colleagues who are working on questions of gender, now over to Anya, if I may. Again, I connect really personally with your approach, and you and I both know women in general, and especially migrant women, face significant challenges in questions of economic empowerment. From what you're thinking about and what you're starting to do within the region, are you seeing ways to consider it that might help to replicate the approach or grow it within other industries or sectors beyond the fashion industry itself?
Absolutely. We are recognizing, first of all, in the fashion industry, in parallel to work that I'm doing as a fashion designer myself, that there's the in real life fashion industry, and now there's this growing, emerging digital fashion industry that I'm already in conversation with some of the leading companies that are merging into the metaverse and replicating the training program for digital tailoring and market access to the global markets that are now being afforded by the blockchain. But in terms of other industries, you know, the Caribbean and Latin America are overflowing with cultural capital in all of the creative industries. I think music, film, animation, I mean, the list goes on as to how these skill sets can be nurtured and refined through training programs like the one that we're developing with Spool to afford this bridging of needs for the industry's residents in the Caribbean and the skill sets that migrants arrive with, quite, you know, incredibly skilled in lots of areas in the creative industries. In particular, that's my experience, obviously. I think quite the same probably across many other industries, but I can speak for the creative industries that there's absolutely a replicable model here. And I hope to see that happen. And I hope that Spool allows for a blueprint, a framework that we can replicate across industries.
Yeah, we're excited to see you build that out from the local angle and from the supply chain angle, and looking forward to learning from that, definitely. Perhaps just in closing, with maybe our last minute remaining, if I could turn to Roberto and ask, seeing how innovative the topic and the theme that you're working on is, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how you've been able to attract the men who benefit from your program to engage on it, and how you want to think about some of the long-term engagement with those individuals you've been working with through the initiative.
Gracias, Shanna. Well, first of all, most of gender-based programming is not focused on men, and this project is very innovative for that reason. And men, Venezuelan men, were always asking, so you work with my wife or my daughter, but what about me? So men were really eager to participate in these programs. And we work a lot with Instagram, other social media to call men to join these sessions. And the main title was Men Working for Their Community, Hombres Trabajando para su Comunidad. So in a way, they belonged, now that they're in Panama, they wanted to have this connection with the community. So they joined these sessions. And then they also tell other men, Venezuelan men, to join after they pass through the sessions. So it was very important for us having this the main big feedback is looking for other men to join means that it was a good program, and they then want other men also to participate as they did. Thank you.
It's so wonderful and really inspiring to me. I think this is a nice day, I want to say for me personally, because I get a chance to really share a little bit about what you all have been working on and we've been supporting over the last year or two. We're really proud. We're really thankful and grateful for the opportunity to work with all the solvers we engage with. Obviously, I want to thank our 4 panelists that are here today, but also all of the grantees that we've had across IDB and USAID funding, as well as everyone who's been following along over the last 1.5 years, 2 years on the initiative. Congratulations to everybody on the extraordinary work you do. It's truly inspiring, and I appreciate getting to share in your passions and dedication. With that, I'm going to pass the word back to my colleague Diego at Atlantic Council to introduce our next speaker.
Muchas gracias, Shanna. Thank you very much for your great moderation and your partnership. And thank you also to the speakers from IRC, Inclúyeme, Together We Foundation, and HIAS. As mentioned extensively in today's conversation, to achieve an efficient and impactful response to the Venezuelan refugee and migrant crisis in Latin America and the Caribbean, we need sustained efforts, build more partnerships, and mobilize more support from innovators and public sector efforts. That's why we're honored to welcome Global Affairs Canada to this event and introduce Sarah Cohen, Director General for South America and Inter-American Affairs. Sarah, welcome again to the virtual Atlantic Council. The floor is yours.
Diego, thank you so much, and always a pleasure to be here with Atlantic Council and other partners. I really would like to start by thanking the IDB and USAID for organizing this important event to highlight the results of the first phase of the BetterTogether Challenge. I really am honored to participate in this event alongside my distinguished colleagues to address really what is one of the most important challenges facing our hemisphere And I really must echo the comments of Irene and Shanna and others. What inspiring comments we've already heard from panelists, from participants, from beneficiaries of the project. Canada, like so many others on this call and here today, is committed to a peaceful resolution to the crisis in Venezuela. And we remain committed to support host countries in the region who've welcomed millions and continue to invest in regularization and the socioeconomic integration of Venezuelan refugees and migrants. We also recognize the fundamental role that the private sector plays when it comes to really driving sustainable economic growth through trade and investment. As we've heard today, Venezuelan refugees and migrants face many challenges, including loss of income during the pandemic, lack of access to basic services, and xenophobia. Of particular concern for Canada is the additional vulnerabilities that women and girls face, such as gender-based violence and lack of access to sexual and reproductive health services. While it's crucial to support the immense efforts of host countries to respond to immediate and longer-term needs, the reality is that despite the mobilization of Canada's international assistance, that of other donors, and host government resources, financing gaps will remain. The BetterTogether Challenge represents an important opportunity to help close this financing gap through new partnerships between government and the private sector, catalyzing investments for sustainable development objectives, and scaling up innovative solutions. I'd like to comment briefly on how important the sectors of focus are: education, employment, and combating gender-based violence. And I think you'll find that here I also echo the comments of USAID colleagues and others who've been speaking to us today. Support to access to quality education for refugee and migrant children is a key commitment of the Government of Canada, because giving children, particularly girls, education has undeniable benefits to the communities and countries they live in. Empowered women and girls can make their own life decisions, especially in sexual and reproductive health, protecting them from harmful practices. Jobs is another critical element. Recent studies in Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador revealed that the socioeconomic integration of Venezuelan refugees and migrants could raise these countries' GDP by 2% in the long term. This is really significant. For governments, working side by side with companies to identify and address obstacles in hiring and retaining new arrivals is absolutely critical, an area Canada has successfully supported in Colombia, for example. And an impressive opportunity within the BetterTogether Challenge is a significant focus on gender equality and women's economic empowerment. Evidence shows that investing in gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls acts as a force multiplier on other development goals. Simply put, development financing is more impactful and sustainable when it promotes gender equality and empowers women and girls. All these actions combined help host nations benefit from the skills, knowledge, entrepreneurship, and new business perspectives of Venezuelan refugees and migrants. And given the inclusive focus, it helps contribute to social cohesion by reducing xenophobia, reducing risky survival behaviors, and improving economic growth. And so in this spirit, we applaud the enterprising nature of the BetterTogether Challenge in its support for innovative solutions for and by Venezuelans, with a view to addressing one of the worst political, humanitarian, and economic crises the region has lived through. We also welcome the targeted support for populations facing increased vulnerabilities, such as women and girls, refugees and migrants, Indigenous populations, and those with disabilities across numerous countries in the region. Canada's Feminist International Assistance Policy commits to building innovation into its assistance programs by adopting new business models, policy practices, technologies, and ways of delivering products and services. This is why Canada looks forward to collaborating with initiatives such as this, where donors and private sector have an opportunity to support and scale up innovative solutions to empower Venezuelans and communities across the region and help contribute to their integration and in turn, economic growth. Together, we really can help Venezuelans and their host communities build a better future for themselves and their families, and also contribute to a better future for the region as a whole. Always a pleasure to be here with the Atlantic Council and with other partners. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And once again, congratulations on such a great event.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's very impactful to hear about the ways in which Global Affairs Canada has and will continue collaborating with the IDB Lab and the BetterTogether Challenge to support Venezuelan migrants in the future. Throughout your involvement with today's event, we appreciate your commitment to amplify Venezuelan international voices to construct innovative and pragmatic solutions to the crisis. Today, we have heard from a diverse and wide-ranging set of voices from the international community and on the ground. The unifying theme connecting all our speakers is their commitment to innovation to improve the circumstances of Venezuelan migrants in the region. We encourage you to continue to support local innovators working to improve Venezuelan migrant circumstances, especially this recent cohort of challenge grantees. Thank you very much for joining to today's conversation, and stay tuned for coming Atlantic Council events and campaigns. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Gracias, Michael.
Well done. Buen trabajo.